Hi, welcome to Coffee Break with Researchers. Today I'm having a coffee break with Olof Hallonsten. He's an associate professor at the School of Economics and Management at Circle at Lund University.
Coffee Break with Researchers presents you with cutting-edge insights on regional development and innovation. We ask researchers directly and in a personal manner about their work. We make scientific knowledge accessible to all.
Olof, thank you very much for accepting this invitation and have a coffee break with me. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. I look forward.
Same here. I'm really enjoying my black coffee today. Which coffee are you having?
Oh, I'm having one of those coffee brands that you get in Swedish universities that are not really good. But the mug is very nice and the paper is interesting, so that will compensate.
I'm sure it will. Olof, I want to talk with you today about the very interesting paper you wrote named Stop Evaluating Science, a historical sociological argument. Could you please tell me what the paper was about?
Yeah, so the paper is deliberately provocative in its title, Stop Evaluating Science. So it is about the current situation for science generally, that it's constantly evaluated in terms of its performance and contributions to society, but in ways that do not really capture the spirit of science or what science is all about, would be my argument. So this is counterproductive and it doesn't make justice to the ways that science really contributes to society.
And I understand that one of the most remarkable things of the paper is the way you suggest to rethink science. So what would you say about that?
Yeah, so the current impression that I have, and that I think many would share with me, is that there are two assumptions that guide this whole performance evaluation hysteria. And the first one is that science would be all about innovation and economic growth, and the other one is that it's somehow underperforming in this regard. But if we look around, we see that science is simply very successful. Its contributions to the development of society during modernity, improvement of life in almost all respects is just astonishing. So it's a little weird that this distrust in its ability to contribute is so seemingly strong and so reflected in these performance evaluations. And this is really sort of at the core of the paper, although I would say it's not really a radical view or a radical way of reevaluating what science is all about. It's basic stuff. It's rather the past 2 or 3 decades of evaluation hysteria and distrust towards scientific knowledge that's the oddity in historical comparison, I would say.
And based on this notion, then, what would you say are the key findings of your paper? Yeah,
so the reason that I wrote the paper was that I was puzzled by this fact that there is such a distrust from policymakers and also from the general public. We can see it in many vulgar forms now, of course, with alternative facts and post-truth and all that. But also from policymakers that somehow there is this idea that universities are not performing as expected or as they should. And since I already told you, answering the previous question, science is so successful, so it shouldn't be like this. So I asked myself, how can it be that there is this strong distrust in science policy making? And being partly a historian of science, or at least trained partly as a historian of science, I looked back and and reread classics in that field and tried to establish sort of a historical explanation for why this is the case. And I found developments in society in general and in the economy from the 60s and 70s and on that are really good to keep in mind when trying to explain these things. For example, the economization of society, that what others have called market fundamentalism, that everything in society is subject to market transactions. With an old Marxist term, it would be called commodification, that everything should be possible to buy and sell on a market and so on. Associated with this is also the idea that we should have immediate rewards all the time, that long-term and hard work is not rewarded really, but it's the instant payoff. And this creates a sort of an uneasiness and a distrust in everything that's hidden or that works long-term and so on. So that's one thing. The other thing is, of course, the democratization of knowledge, really. Back in the days, professors and other similar authorities were really on a high level above the sort of the general population and couldn't be questioned to that extent. And from the 60s and on, there have of course been healthy and very revitalizing movements in society that have questioned old authorities and led to a far more democratic and equal society. And that's good. Of course, that's good, but it has as a side effect this distrust in knowledge and the authority of knowledge that, among other things, then lead to a kind of an institutionalized distrust among policymakers and the public towards science and the institutions of science, such as the university.
Thank you for sharing those insights. Now, I want you to tell us a little bit about your personal experience or motivation when writing this paper.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I've been a postdoctoral researcher for 12 years now, and I've written quite a few articles, and usually it's really long-term hard work, and you need to think about it for several years and write and rewrite and then submit and reject, and you have colleagues reading it and criticizing, and sometimes you just forget about it and you get fed up and so on. So it's really a tiresome process. With this one, it was almost like I've been thinking about this for like 10 years or even more, these ideas, but I never got myself to put it down on paper. So once when I got this invitation to be part of Circle, I thought, well, okay, so what am I gonna do here? I need to show productivity, ironically. I needed to show productivity right from the start. And I just sat down and contemplated this. And then once I sort of got this almost like a eureka moment, and I wrote it down, I presented it here at Circle at the seminar and got really good feedback, submitted it to a journal, and they just accepted it right away. So it was like unbelievable how this could sort of and then I also questioned it. I thought, oh no, I made some mistakes here or there, or this went way too fast. But I'm really happy about it, and I know it's a little bit self-pride here, but I can't resist saying that this is one of those once-in-a-lifetime moments where sort of from idea to article and to publication, it just went smoothly like that.
That's a great experience, and thank you for sharing. I'm sure people are very happy to know about this eureka moment of yours. Finally, I want to ask you about the policy implications that were triggered or that you think were important after the paper.
Yeah, so reading the title, it says "Stop Evaluating Science," and that, of course, is a misinterpretation. It's deliberately provocative to say "Stop Evaluating Science." I'm not advocating that we should stop that altogether, because some performance evaluation is necessary for resource priorities and so on, benchmarking, of course. What this is more like a plea for sanity, to hunker down a little bit, to shift over the burden of responsibility, really, so that currently my experience is that policymakers just take as a fact that science is not productive enough and needs to be evaluated, and the burden of proof lies on us, the scientists, to prove that we're productive. But I think, in light of what I have said about science being so enormously successful and productive historically and currently as well, I think the burden of proof should be shifted over to those who claim that it's not successful or that it's not productive enough. So that, I would say, is the main policy implication from the paper.
Great, thanks for that. Thank you for sharing those great insights about this very, very interesting paper. And I wish you all the best for your future research, and hope to see you again with a better coffee.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you're interested in more details about this academic publication, you can find here the link below. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, or listen to our podcast on Spotify. See you next time. Bye-bye.